It's the Real Estate Podcast, brought to you by ANZ Home Loans for financial well-beings.
If you're still in the figuring it out phase, December is a great time to play with the numbers. Get on the mortgage calculator, see what you can afford, or even just see how long it would take to build up the funds for all of your associated costs. But if 2026 is a dead cert and we're going to hop onto the property ladder, December is the time to get your pre-approval.
Yeah, that is such a great idea, in terms of get out of your car, do a bit of a walk around the area. Just that familiarisation is critical when you're looking at buying any form of property. And does it make sense to get pre-approval in December? Some of you will be asking this question if you are not going to be doing anything until January. What would you suggest where people are fighting this as well, Shauna?
So pre-approval is like how long is a piece of string? You could get your pre-approval through in less than a week, or in some cases it could take 3-4 weeks to come through. You just don't know. Maybe you want to look at and compare different banks. Maybe the bank will come back and say that there's additional conditions they need you to meet before they can proceed to a final offer. There's so many different things that could crop up. And because of that, there are so many benefits to having pre-approval early. And look, even if you're starting to attend viewings through December, which is a good idea given the market is a lot quieter, pre-approved are the magic words to sellers' ears. So when you're putting in an offer, when you say the words pre-approved, they're more likely to take your offer over someone who hasn't even started the process. So you're more likely to win the house. So yes, relax a bit for Christmas, but don't go into hibernation. A little prep now can save you weeks later down the line and might even be the difference between securing your ideal home or losing it to a more organised buyer.
Yes, let's have a look ahead to January, and you've got your pre-approval in hand. That is great, and you're ready to put in an offer. What are some of the key things for buyers to keep in mind? Well, let's go to you, Shauna, because I'm sure you can talk to this.
Yeah, so I know I might sound a bit mad saying this, but it bears repeating. The document that the buyer and seller sign to agree to the purchase, it's a legally binding document. You have to read it, run through it with a fine-tooth comb, ask questions, ask more questions, and ask so many questions your agent wants to quit. Honestly, you have no idea how many people think, I didn't read it or I assumed it was in there, is a valid answer when troubles start. It's a contract. Both parties are legally bound by the terms in it, and breach of contract can land you in big trouble or wind up with you handing over 10% of the property value.
Yeah, that's great advice, because buying property, as you say, it's very, very stressful, next to planning a wedding. Not that I've ever done that. So how do you make sure that you don't get overwhelmed by this whole process, Shauna?
So it's very simple. You educate yourself, you ask your questions, and you pick good people who know how to answer those questions. In 2025, I've transferred over 100 million worth of property. And the biggest thing that crops up time and time again that causes issues is people making snap decisions without fully knowing or understanding the process or what the result of those decisions would be. And look, don't get me wrong, it's not your job to understand the process. You're not here to manage how everything moves, but you do have a team of people who you're likely paying a lot of money who can advise you. You're paying them, so use their services.
Yesterday, the RBA met and we reported this to you.
Yeah, good afternoon. Hot off the press, I do know the detail. There was no change to the cash rate, which I think is going to be a big relief to mortgage holders heading into the Christmas and holiday season. Cash rate remains at 3.6%.
Yes, when you start talking about the possibility, as the economists were last week, saying that potentially we might have a rise, I think everybody's going to settle for just no change. No change is, I think, a win for people.
I think it is a win. I mean, There's real concern the inflationary genie's back out of the bottle. So there might be some rises in the new year, but as you say, a lot of relief for everyone just to get through the Christmas and holiday season with the cash rate held.
Get insider tips from industry professionals.
I did mention that Victorian-style home in North Sydney. This is something that you were part of, selling for that $3.9 million. As I say, this is the highest, one of the highest non-waterfront sales at the moment. So plenty going on, isn't there, at the moment in North Sydney?
There is. Even though we're heading towards Christmas, there's still quite a lot happening in North Sydney. But thank you for having me here. It's lovely to be here this morning.
And also, I want to talk to you about the 2025 year in North Sydney, because there's been a number of new developments that have shaken down as the year has gone on.
Yes, so there's been quite a few that have been approved. We've noticed this especially with vendors and owners. They've been coming to us this year and especially for next year as well. It's usually because they believe that their view is going to be blocked, so they're looking to sell early before those developments are made.
And despite a handful of these blockbuster sales, it has been reported that the auctioneers are saying the broader market is starting to soften. High inflation, of course, we've got that. Rates are uncertain and buyer fatigue. They're all contributing to the cooling momentum, with many of these auctions now described as a grind, unquote. And FOMO is fading and more buyers are choosing to wait rather than rush into purchases. Is that what you are experiencing?
So I have found that a few auctions, you'll find that a few buyers have buyer's paralysis, where they'll do all the work, they'll get the amendments and they'll get to the auction, but they won't bid. Or they'll get all the amendments ready to negotiate and then they'll decide that they want to pull out. They'll wait for another rate cut or for next year or for after Christmas. So that is something that I have seen as well.
Are you saying that it's more of a buyer's market at the moment in North Sydney?
So I would say slightly. In the market for the apartments, there is quite a bit of stock online. Because of that, I do believe that it's a bit of a buyer's market on that side. However, because of the houses, there's only 3 current houses for sale here at the moment. I mean, we are close to Christmas. So that is an impact of it as well. There's quite a high demand for those detached houses.
Yeah, so really what you're saying is there's a lot of buyers that are into the units because obviously they're at a cheaper price point, but it's that blue chip property, those high-end quality properties, they're always going to sell, and that's the key point about your market there in North Sydney.
Exactly. So out of North Sydney itself, about 36% of it is renters, so there's mostly investors that are purchasing these apartments, whereas 37% are the owner-occupied.
If you're a new listener, welcome. We talk to the most knowledgeable real estate experts across Australia every day from 6 a.m.
And talking of Croydon, I actually used to live there many, many years ago when I used to work for 3KZ, which was the number one radio station back in the day, which is now called Gold 104.3. First home buyers, they really are feeling that intense pressure. These price rises are outpacing their budget.
Absolutely. I'm seeing that a lot with the first home buyers. They go into the market with their 5% deposit. They're lucky to have 20% deposit, and they think that they can buy a particular house or a particular apartment. They start looking for those properties in that range. When they get in there, especially now, there's a lot of competition and those prices rise on the back of the government's 5% scheme. It's meaning that they're having to bid higher and higher, or they're getting into bidding wars with others, and they're really stretching their budget. And so the spare money that you talked about, that's being used, the emergency fund, the fund was set aside for moving costs, or the set aside for do some renovations, quick renovations when they moved into the house. Those things are now being put to the side, or they're having to buy properties that are a lot more run down now because they can't get the same type of property that they were able to get even 3-4 months ago.
Yeah, and you just have to have a look at Sydney's median house prices, where they have jumped this year $121,000. That's on houses. Units have risen about $52,000. These increases, they're just forcing first home buyers to stretch, as you say, even further than ever to stay competitive. Just want to sort of pick up on the fact with people that have, say, bought 7-8 months ago, and they've found, hey, this is really, really difficult. Like, you must have clients that have, and we're going to talk about one of them coming up in just a moment, but generally you must sort of find that where people are going, boy, I think I've bitten off too much than I can chew.
When you're in a market where prices keep going up, and that's incredible numbers. 121,000 on houses in 1 year, it's demoralizing for some first home buyers, and the ones that have gone in, if they're not getting the rate relief, if the rates aren't coming down, if their incomes are not going up, and they've stretched their budget and they're spending, 30, 40, sometimes 50% of their income on a mortgage, it's incredibly hard. Yes, a lot of clients are doing it tough, Craig. It's definitely not easy out there. And increasing house prices, not only is it difficult to get in, then, like you said, difficult to maintain them and keep them as well.
Yes, indeed. And we do feel for those first home buyers where some of them have just abandoned the idea of buying a property for them to live in. Instead, what they're doing is they're buying these investment properties. How much of that have you seen in 2025?
I've seen a lot of that, especially with the younger generation. So your under 25s, where they don't have, the servicing, they don't have the income to service these large mortgages that are needed to buy a house in Sydney. So what they're actually doing is they're going interstate, buying properties in growth areas. Some are using buyer's agents, some are doing it themselves, but they're trying to make money and they're trying to make equity from investment properties so that they can then either leverage that later on or sell that and bring that money back into Sydney and help them try and buy a house here.
All right. Well, Christmas time isn't too far away. You'll be looking forward to a break. Are you getting away for your downtime?
I'm actually going home for the first time in 13 years. So I'm super excited. I think my mum is more excited than me. She's going to get to see the grandkids and spend Christmas back home in the UK. So that's going to be fun.
Wow, I did detect that ever so slight English accent coming through. And what's your mum's name? First name?
Eileen.
Eileen. All right. Well, have yourself a wonderful time, Eileen. Terence has done a great job on the podcast this morning. You're no doubt listening to that. So Merry Christmas to Eileen. Merry Christmas to you and your family, Terence.
Merry Christmas to you, Craig, as well, and to everyone listening. Thank you.
We help to break down real estate every day to help you better understand the Australian property market.
Readjusting a vendor's mindset. It isn't the easiest thing to do when the market in the luxury space is moving and moving upward.
Yeah, so that's an out-of-line sale. And it's interesting, when a sale like that does happen, you get the neighbours or the neighbours in the other streets and they, if that's sold for this, my house is on bigger land. I can see the top of Centre Point. They could only see the bottom of Centre Point. It does sort of change a vendor's perception. And then I guess you've got to get onto that educating stage and go through the notions on why it's sold for that and why your home, is perceived at this price. But it happens in every suburb. It happened in Bondi a couple of years ago. A semi sold for 6.7. All of a sudden, everyone in the street was then saying, mine must be worth that. And so, fair point.
Well, you mention Bondi Beach. The Christmas season is here, and given the rising demand for coastal living, especially around Bondi and Bondi Beach, how are you seeing the balance between apartments and houses change there? Are there buyers that are leaning towards lifestyle or long-term investment? What have been some of your observations over the past 12 months?
Investors are coming back to the market, but I've also seen there have been downsizers from the North Shore who have decided to come to Bondi and downsize for that lifestyle. There has been very limited stock of both homes and apartments in Bondi, Bondi Beach and North Bondi, which has kept prices at a very high level. So I guess it's who's buying these homes. You are getting young professionals. There are a lot of downsizers that are coming and buying luxury apartments or even, 3-bedroom, 2-bedroom apartments. But it is a lifestyle decision, yeah.
Yeah, so it's big money. That sort of leads us on to this question of off-market sales. Now, why are they happening in these exclusive areas? We talked this year about that. And off-market isn't mass market in terms of promoting a property, but some of these people, these vendors, these owners, they just do not want the publicity around a sale. There are various organisations that love, of course, to promote. We never do, but there are others that promote these individuals that are buying. Yeah, I can kind of, on one hand, see where an owner is coming from, but then on the other side, I'd really love to get the most that I could for my property, no matter where it is.
There are a couple of reasons why a vendor or an owner would decide to sell off market. Yes, one is the privacy aspect, but the other element is, we don't want to spend the money on a campaign. We want to do it quietly. And there is the potential to get a better price off market. But on the flip side, if it does go to market, it could be hotly contested. And I'll give you a case study around that in a second. But the reality is, if people could sell by pressing a red button and not go through the process, they would do it. Also, the off-market buyer's agent's big thing at the moment is we will secure a property for a purchaser off-market and we'll get it for you before it goes to market. That doesn't mean that they're necessarily going to get you a deal or a cheap price, but sometimes a purchaser will pay a premium not to see the property go to market. But the result for a vendor is not always the best. So I had a semi a couple of weeks ago in North Bondi. A couple of buyers agents came through and they made me an offer, which I thought, and it was a good offer in the high threes. It was an estate sale, so there were a few people involved and siblings. So the vendor's lawyer suggested we go to market so it's fair. And it ended up getting at auction 8 bidders, $400,000 over that off-market price, which I thought was a great price at the beginning. But, it just shows that if you do go to market, you can get a better result. There are pros and cons to off-market, and you've got to define what is off-market. Off-market means it's not on any portals, doesn't go online, doesn't go on domain, it shouldn't even be sent to an agent's database. It should be, I've sold a house in this suburb, I've got the perfect buyer for your home, would you be interested in selling it off-market?
We connect you to the best real estate information across Australia. The Real Estate Podcast.